Hello, everyone. It's Dr. Manjari Narkani, Ayurvedic MD, registered holistic nutritionist, back today for another Wellness Wednesday. So, today's topic is quite interesting. So, today we're going to really discuss all about hormones and weight loss. And what I've seen in my practice is if you're trying everything in your power, if you are eating right, if you are really taking time to exercise, if you're doing everything in your power to help with weight loss or help with fat loss and doing it right. I don't mean, following certain dietary trends which ensure like or which talk about you losing weight but don't really lose weight and they're unhealthy. I'm not talking about crash diets. So I'm talking about if you're trying to do everything healthy, if you are really eating healthily, if you are working out, if you have really taken time to minimize your stress levels, and still if you feel stuck at a certain weight, right? That's when the hormonal component is what we have to discuss, and that's why we are here. So if you are watching this live, please say a quick hi. If you are watching this as a replay, please say a quick hi, or post it in the comments, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you have. So please say a quick hi. And I'm just gonna say, okay, there's two people who has joined. Hello. And I can't see anyone on Facebook. I know a few people are online, but I can't really see them now. Um, so, okay, perfect. So, hi, Vrinda, nice to see you. So, let's talk about hormones and weight loss. I think I have goofed up a little bit, and um, I'm quickly going to share this to Blue Water Nutrition because I was supposed to go live there, and I think I change something in. Oh, it looks okay. Okay, plans to go live. Okay, I'm just gonna share this to the page and just bear with me for a quick second and I will quickly. Okay, perfect. Yeah, I think I goofed up a little bit when I was posting in different groups and yeah, so let's talk about hormones and weight loss. So hormones can definitely impact your weight loss if you are trying everything and if you feel stuck, or if you feel that your weight doesn't seem to budge, if you're getting irritable, if you have issues with memory, right? If you are gaining a lot of what we call belly fat, chances are your hormones are haywire. And first, let's talk a little bit about hormones, right? And which hormones are typically more implicated when it comes to weight loss or weight gain for that matter. And then we can talk about the signs and symptoms of any kind of hormonal imbalances, right? So the one main hormone which we talk about when it comes to your weight is insulin, right? So insulin is a hormone that is produced by beta cells of your pancreas. It's produced in your pancreas and it helps your blood, like cells, take up blood sugar for energy, right? So when you eat all these carbs, when you're eating the sugary foods, you should be using those, so insulin is going to help open up the gates of the cells so the cells can take the sugar molecule inside and utilize it for energy, right? Now this insulin also tells fat cells to store fat, right? And also prevents the fat from being broken down. So what happens sometimes is we call there is a state of insulin resistance. Now what insulin resistance is, that insulin resistance is a state where your cells which have receptors to insulin are not functioning well. So these cells are not going to recognize that insulin is being secreted, and it's not going to attach to the receptor of the cell. And the insulin, though it's there, it's not going to be connected to your cell and let the blood sugar to be utilized, right? So what this does is your blood has excess of insulin, and the more insulin it has, the more it's going to tell your body to deposit fat, right? Because that's what it does. One of the common causes of insulin resistance that we see in today's world, is eating a lot of sugars, refined carbs, fast foods, and it all drives insulin resistance, and it also increases your insulin levels. The more you eat, sometimes, for people who are eating 6 times a day, the one thing to remember is the more times you eat, every time you're eating, your body is going to secrete insulin, right? And that is why this might not be healthy for someone who has excess amounts of insulin in the system already, or insulin resistance, where you're eating constantly throughout the day. You're trying, your body secreting that much more insulin constantly when you already have it in your body, which you haven't utilized because of the insulin resistance. You're most welcome, Angela. Angela, thank you so much. Yeah, so insulin resistance is the number one key factor which is preventing your weight loss. The best way to go about it is cut out all the simple carbs, right? I don't mean cut out each and every carb that you're eating, but cut out the simple carbs. Any of the fruit juice or eating lots of fruit because you want to be healthy is not a good choice, especially if you have excess of this, insulin hormone in the circulation, which is not being accepted by the receptors or attached to the receptors of your body, right? So for insulin resistance, like balancing this is one of the most important things you will ever do. And if you are someone who's having those crashes constantly, if you eat and you feel tired, or if you're hangry and you're really irritable, this is one thing that shows that your insulin is out of balance, right? Another simple thing you can do for insulin balancing it out is to have protein with each meal. Again, I'm not saying tons of protein, but you need some amount of protein with every single meal. That is going to keep your blood sugars fairly stable, right? So if your blood sugar stays stable, if it doesn't drop too much, you are going to not secrete the other stress hormones because your body doesn't perceive it as a threat, right? So we're going to talk about cortisol in some time, but the first hormone we talked about was insulin. Hi, Mary Alice, nice to see you. Hi, Susan, nice to see you. So the first thing we talked was insulin. So you have to make sure, your insulin is um, functioning optimally, and try to have three main meals. Don't overeat. Don't keep eating throughout the day or grazing throughout the day. A lot of people think that having small meals 7 or 8 times a day is fantastic. It is not for everyone, right? If you're an athlete, it's a different story, because you're working out and your strenuous working outs are ensuring that you're using up all the calories that you put into your body, right? Your muscles are using up all the carbs that you're eating. But for a normal everyday person who's sedentary, who's not exercising, eating 8 times a day is going to make your digestion really sluggish and will create this status of having excess insulin in your system, and is going to prevent weight loss. So that is my number one factor that I wanted to talk about, right? And exercising again is really helpful. So I have talked about, gaining muscle mass or weight training, and that is extremely important when it comes to even your insulin, because exercise has insulin sparing activity, right? So it's going to use up your carbs without you having to push more insulin into your system. So that's something that's extremely important. Now we go to the second hormone, and this is something I'm not sure if you've heard about, but there is a hormone called leptin, right? So this leptin is secreted by your fat cells, right? So your cells in the body, which are your fatty cells, which are around your abdomen or any of the fat in your body, it also secretes hormones. So leptin is one that is secreted by your fat cells, and it is understood as a satiety hormone. So it reduces your appetite and it helps you feel full, right? So after you've eaten a meal, if you feel satisfied, if you're not hungry anymore, you're feeling full, you're like, okay, I feel good, I've had this meal, this means your leptin is working well, right? It's a signaling hormone. It communicates with a part of your brain that regulates appetite and food intake. Now, leptin tells your brain that, okay, there's enough fat in my body that's stored, I don't need any more, and I'm going to not overeat, right? Now, what research has found is people who are overweight or obese or have excess fat usually have very high levels of leptin in the body, right? So people who are obese have maybe 4 times more leptin hormone in the body as normal weight, right? So if leptin reduces appetite, obese people should start eating less. That is like the common logic, right? But it does not work, because just like people have insulin resistance, you could also have resistance to this thing called leptin, which your hormone is not functioning well. It's not signaling your brain that you're full, and you're not feeling full. You keep eating constantly because you think you're hungry, right? So this is something that is also seen in people who are overweight or who have, you know, trouble losing weight. So one main cause again is this insulin and leptin work together, right? So if you have high insulin, chances are you're also going to have high levels of leptin resistance, right? And if you have a lot of inflammation in the body, right, sometimes people eat foods that are inflammatory in nature. So gluten is creating a lot of inflammation for most people. Dairy can create inflammation for a lot of people. Soy, corn, a lot of food preservatives we talk about, sulfites in your food, you know. So there are different things that can create inflammation in your body depending on your body, right? So if these are creating inflammation, you're not going to be sensitive to the hormone leptin. You're not going to feel full. You're always going to feel hungry. And this is something that I had experienced. Right. Hello, Tamji. So I remember my teenage years or my growing up years, you know, I was really obese. I was 96 kgs at the age of 16, I think. Yeah. So that's a little bit less than, or almost around 200 pounds, right? And at the time I would just eat huge amounts of food and never really feel full. But as soon as and I would be hangry all the time, so I would be irritable all the time. If I didn't get food, I would just be grouchy, and I felt like, you know, I could eat furniture if I'm that hungry, right? So if you are constantly hungry, right, this is because your leptin is not functioning well, which is the hormone that provides you satiety and helps you feel full. Thank you, Uttamji. No problem joining late. You can always catch the replay as well. And again, now one thing that works with leptin resistance, you know, that we talk about is, or dropping the level of leptins, is sleep, right? So when we talk about hormones and we talk about, you know, your weight loss, there are certain other components that you need to look at it as well, because getting enough sleep is also going to lower your leptin levels. Getting enough sleep is also going to lower your cortisol levels, which is your stress hormone, which we are going to talk in a few minutes, right? So right now I've covered two hormones. We've talked about insulin, we've talked about leptin. The third one we're going to talk about is ghrelin. Now these three are not as common, right? When we talk about hormones, most people perceive, oh, I'm either going to talk about cortisol or I'm going to talk about, you know, female hormones, which we'll come to later. But these three are extremely important, right? Insulin, leptin, and ghrelin. So ghrelin is the one that makes you growl with hunger. So if you're like, I'm hungry, I'm really hungry, you know, that's known as ghrelin, right? So it's a hunger hormone. So when your stomach is empty, it's going to release this ghrelin, which is going to growl, and it's like, I'm hungry, I need my food right now, right? So in overweight or obese people, these levels are actually lower than it should have been. And what happens is, you know, the levels are already low, so when you're eating, the level is only going to slightly change, right? So you're not going to again feel full. You know, it doesn't tell your body to stop eating. And that's why, you know, when you are overweight, your food intake, the quantity is going to be way more than somebody who's normal weight, right? Again, a simple thing to help with the function of ghrelin, which is like making you growl with hunger, you're extremely hungry, is to have protein with each meal. So if you have good amounts of protein with your meals, if it's going to again keep your blood sugar balanced, it's going to keep your insulin balanced, it's going to keep your leptin as well as ghrelin balanced, right? So the key takeaway, if one thing you want to do, if you listen to my talk today, to help balance with hormones, especially to aid weight loss, is please try to have some amounts of protein with each meal. Your proteins also could be lentils or dals or beans, or chicken, eggs. So try to eat any protein that is digestible to you, right? You don't need enormous amounts, but you just need some amount of protein with each and every meal. The fourth hormone we're going to talk about is cortisol. Everybody talks about cortisol. I think I've been speaking about cortisol for quite some time now. And cortisol is again one of the most important hormones we can talk about, and it is stress hormone, right? So right now, when you are worrying about the world locking down again, like seriously, this has been a bit stressful for me too, considering that I can't open my clinic, I have to do everything virtually, which is not that bad, but again, there's still some amount of stress where you don't know when you can travel, or what's going to happen, right? So this cortisol, or your stress hormone, is secreted. This cortisol is secreted whenever your body perceives stress. So even if you're starving, right? People who undereat, so if you are on some crazy crash diet eating 500 calories a day, right, your body is going to perceive stress, though you might not be mentally stressed, and that is going to make your adrenal glands secrete this cortisol, right? And this cortisol is like a survival hormone. It's really important for us to survive. So when your body goes into survival mode, right, it's going to push this cortisol, increase the cortisol to help the body, right? One big sign is having a heavier midsection. So if you have a heavier midsection, if you have a lot of fat around your midsection, it could be related to cortisol and also high amounts of insulin, right, which your body is not utilizing. So that is something to keep in mind. And one thing to work with cortisol is really managing your stress and also sleeping, right? So stress management, you could do meditation, you could do exercise in moderation. That would really work. You could do some kind of activity that you enjoy that takes the stress away. You could paint, you could listen to music, but do it on a consistent basis, right? And make sure you're not eating anything that's inflammatory, because when your body again perceives inflammation, when your body feels like it's breaking down or there's something going on in the body, again it's going to release that cortisol. And eating at regular times is going to make sure your blood sugar stays balanced and also your stress system is not activated. If you don't eat for hours on end, right, there are some people or my clients that I know who will eat at night and throughout the day they just forget to eat. Your body is going to perceive that as a stress. It needs food and you're not giving it as any food or any fuel to function, right? If you don't put fuel in your car, if you don't put gas in your car, it's not going to drive, but yet we expect our body to keep driving. So if you are not eating regularly at regular intervals, at least 3 meals a day, your body might perceive stress and will secrete this excess cortisol. If you're not sleeping well, right, sleep deprivation is one of the biggest causes of weight gain. So sleep deprivation will definitely oops yeah, sleep deprivation will definitely do that, right? So make sure you're getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep that your body requires. And there is no one number of sleep that everybody needs, right? Some people tend to need less sleep than the others, but one sign of having a good sleep is that you're waking up refreshed, you're not putting your snooze clock on constantly, right? So that's the one thing. So let's take a quick question. So Uttamji has a question that what are inflammation inducing foods? Most generally, what we call inflammation inducing foods, gluten today reacts for a lot of people. I cannot say it's going to create inflammation in 100% of the people, right? But an example would be, different person might get inflamed with different foods. People who have sensitivity in their gut, usually react either to dairy or gluten. People who have issues with eczema, the sign is that they have skin conditions like eczema or even sometimes psoriasis. They are inflamed because of milk products like whey or paneer or any kind of cheeses, right? People who have arthritis tend to have more inflammation when they eat foods like nightshades, which is tomatoes, potatoes, peppers, and eggplants. So, people with arthritis, if they start having a lot of tomatoes or tomato sauces, they find that their joints hurt more. So, in the Western nutrition, or in modern nutrition, or even with holistic nutrition, there's a tendency to group a food as, okay, this is really inflammatory, but not everything is inflammatory for everyone, right? So it will depend on your body and how your body is digesting food and how your body is responding that to that food as well. So there's not one food that's inflammatory. And another concept that I would like to talk maybe sometime later is, just because you grew up eating the food doesn't mean your body is always going to like it. Sometimes our bodies change because of stress levels, hormones, aging, and then you might react to different foods. So I hope that answers your question. So we've talked about four hormones right now. We talked about insulin, we talked about leptin, ghrelin, we've also talked about cortisol. The fifth one I want to talk about is estrogen. So estrogen is the main female hormone, right? It's an important female sex hormone, mainly produced by your ovaries, right? And it helps with fertility. It helps with fat storage as well. It does help fat storage, right? So one thing that studies have shown is women who are obese have higher estrogen levels than normal weight women, right? Which could be because of environmental influences as well. A common thing is if you're eating or drinking water out of plastic bottles, it's going to put in some foreign estrogens in your body, which is not the healthier estrogen for you, right? And this estrogen, which is known as xenoestrogen, is going to have 100-fold effect on your estrogen receptors. So one simple thing you can do about it is have plenty of fiber to detoxify that estrogen. You can have good cruciferous vegetables, kale, broccoli, cauliflower, bok choy, and that is really going to help you detoxify any excess, hormones. And exercising is another important factor, right? Again, there are some more hormones called, I'm not going to confuse you with those, but there are, neuropeptides, and cholecystokinin is another one, but I'm going to keep it fairly simple for today. So these are a few hormones we talked about and how they impact your weight loss. So some takeaways for you before I get into the symptoms of imbalance is, make sure you're eating at regular times, fixed times, fixed times. Okay, your breakfast is at 8 o'clock in the morning, your lunch is at 12, and you can have dinner at 4 or 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, right? Have protein at each meal and make sure you're sleeping well, right? So I have another good question is, does ashwagandha help to keep cortisol in balance? That is again a really good question. So ashwagandha is known as an adaptogen, right? So adaptogens are herbs that actually help with your stress glands, and ashwagandha can definitely keep your cortisol in balance, right? The one thing I don't always recommend is taking supplements off the shelf, because you want to know how they're impacting other systems in the body too. So that's really important. But the answer to your question is yes, 100%. Ashwagandha can help with cortisol balance, for sure. So let's go back to, we've talked about hormones, we talked about how they impact. So what are some signs that your body is, having issues with hormones? How do you understand that, okay, I have hormonal imbalance, right? So, okay, another good question I have is from Vrinda. Estrogen hormone, is it related to polycystic ovarian syndrome? Yes, polycystic ovarian syndrome can be understood as a state of excess estrogen in the system. And that is, that could be one of the causes, right? And as I'm saying, these hormones like the estrogen could also be coming in your body from a few different factors. Your fat cells can also secrete excess estrogen. At the same time, if you're having a lot of environmental, maybe like pesticides act like female hormones. A lot of chemicals in the lipsticks and all, in our cosmetics can also act as female hormones, right? That's why I'm trying to go all natural nowadays when it comes to makeup, and I'm just throwing out all my old stuff. So really, all the body lotions, anything you put in your body, anything you put in your mouth, if you are not aware of it right now, could be laden with these foreign estrogens or xenoestrogens. Bottles of water which have BPA, the cans of beans and all which have BPA, right, could also create this hyper estrogenism, which could also make your hormones go haywire and is connected to PCOS. So, what are some signs? Weight gain is one thing, right? Having a hump of fat between your shoulders. So, if you have excess fat, back fat, right, between your shoulder blades, between your shoulders, that's a sign you have excess cortisol as well, right? So having extreme fatigue, if you're constantly tired or losing muscle mass, could also be a sign of hormonal imbalance. If you have excess cortisol, you will lose muscle mass, right? So that is something that you have to pay attention to. Joint pain could also be a cause of, hormonal imbalance, muscle aches, tenderness, stiffness, excess sweating. Often constipation and diarrhea could also be connected with your hormones. We haven't discussed some hormones like cholecystokinin. Maybe I'll do another specific one on that one. But even increased thirst, increased hunger, frequency of urination, these are all connected with the insulin hormone, right? Any kind of depression, any nervousness, any anxiety, irritability could also be connected to your imbalanced hormones. Thinning of hair, brittle hair, puffy face, you're retaining a lot of water, you feel bloated, could also be a sign that your hormones are out of balance. One of the best ways to understand any hormonal imbalances in women is to pay attention to your cycles, right? If you are diagnosed already with PCOS or PCOD or endometriosis, or you have heavy periods, irregular periods, or just spotting and are skipping your cycles completely, if you're getting facial hair, if you're getting a lot of acne, especially this section, if you're getting a lot of hair loss, if there's any darkening of skin in your neck creases or in your groin region or underneath your breasts, that also shows hormonal imbalance, right? Excess vaginal dryness, vaginal atrophy, low libido, any pain during intercourse is also a sign of hormonal imbalance. Your estrogen could either be high or low in certain conditions, or you could have really low progesterone too. So I have done a video on hormones, female hormones. So if you are watching this new, check out my Facebook page. There are tons of informational videos. Also feel free to go on to my YouTube page. There are tons of informational videos as well. In men, hormonal imbalance can also be seen as gynecomastia. So if you're seeing breast development in men, that is a sign that they have excess of this estrogen and lower testosterone, right? Breast tenderness in men, or erectile dysfunction, or decrease in the hair, so if they're not growing a beard, or if they're losing a lot of muscle mass or bone mass, or hot flashes in men, can be symptoms of hormonal imbalance, right? In children, one of the signs of hormonal imbalance is that there's not enough development of, breast tissue in girls who are like young, or menstruation doesn't begin till the age of, 16 or something, right? So that could also be an issue. With young boys, it could be that they're not developing a lot of muscle mass, or their voice isn't deepening, or the body hair is sparse. So these are some signs and symptoms that your hormones are either not working well, um, not working well, either are too low or too high, right? So does excess cortisol lead to estrogen imbalance, or they don't impact? See, when it comes to hormones, everything impacts everything, right? Usually you are seeing excess cortisol in the body, I'll give you a very simple explanation without getting into the very scientific specifics of it. Excess cortisol in the body also shows up as excess fat in the body, most commonly around your midsection. And excess fat in the body is going to secrete more estrogen in the body. So it is going to, one thing is going to lead to the other, right? They are definitely going to impact, right? And always hormones work together. If somebody is telling you that, oh, only my one hormone is not functioning well, and that is why most protocols by practitioners also go wrong, because they don't look at the other hormones. You always have to look at all the hormones together. You can't just look at estrogen and focus on estrogen while you're neglecting cortisol, you're neglecting insulin. So that doesn't happen. In my practice, I have to assess you for each and every hormone, what's going on, right? So if you have excess cortisol, chances are your estrogen is out of balance 100%, right? If you have excess estrogen, you are probably having excess cortisol as well. So always, when it comes to hormones, please look at them together. Do not look at them separately, because they do not work separately. They all impact one another, right? One of the other hormones that I haven't mentioned today here is thyroid. I've done an entire video on thyroid, but thyroid for women is extremely important when it comes to weight maintenance. If you are not losing weight, if your hands and feet are cold and clammy, you you are losing a lot of hair, your skin is really dry and brittle, your hair is dry and brittle, your skin is like breaking and it's really dry and flaky, you're constipated, you're not being able to focus, also chances are your thyroid could be out of balance. So again, this is a big subject. I tried to condense it into one day, but I hope you found this information useful. Thank you everyone who's watched this. If you have more questions, just put it in the comment section. I'll be more than happy to get back to you with answers. Right now, I was taking a little winter break, hibernation, but I'm planning to start regular Facebook Lives in the month of Feb, right? So I'm trying to go live in the morning now rather than focus on lives at the end of the day when I get really tired. So I will be posting the topics soon, and I will be going live on my Facebook page regularly in the month of Feb. So that's one thing I'm committing to. Thank you once again, everyone who watched this live. Thank you, Olivia, for joining. Thanks, Mindful Jewelry. Thanks, Dr. Swati. Thanks, Dr. Heel. Thanks, Bharani. Thank you, everyone here as well. So thanks for watching this live. And if you like this video, please share it with someone that you know needs to look at this. If you know your friend has really bad dietary habits or sleep habits or some poor habits, and their hormones could be off, please tag them in this video, or you can even privately send them this video in Messenger, right? So that they learn something and find this information useful and start taking charge of their health. Try to make 2021 the best year, the healthiest year of your life. This is extremely important. So please take charge of your health. Don't ignore your health. Don't be delusional about your health. Health is again something that has to be kept by working on it constantly. Simple things will have a lot of good impact on your health, so it's not that complicated. So please focus on 2021 as the healthiest year, to make it the healthiest year of your life. Thank you for watching once again. Thank you, Sigi. I'm super happy you found this useful. Thanks once again, and I will see you guys soon next week for Wellness Wednesday. I'm also doing some Instagram lives with Vrunda on the Health Onwards channel. So on Saturday, we'll be doing another live there. And I also have a Saturday guest for my expert series. This week, we have Dr. Vandana Baranwal, and we'll be discussing more about menopause. Thank you once again, and I will see you all soon. Bye for now. Okay, so.